Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the Daily Deuce. I'm Gary Graves from just outside lovely Louisville, Kentucky, where we have a women's team that's going on to the Sweet 16 and two teams that are at home watching the NCAA after getting beat by that lovely Cinderella St. Peter's. In Maryland, John Webster, who's upset, for lack of a better word, over Maryland's coaching hire. We'll get to that in a minute, and hold on for that, because we were having a nice civil discussion about that, weren't we, John Webster?
Hey Gary, how's everything going, man? Glad to be here again this week. Really great games this weekend. I thoroughly enjoyed everything. Women's bracket had some upsets. The men's bracket had some upsets. It is absolute madness, Gary, absolute madness. And, before we say hey to John Pitt, well, let's say hey to John Pitt. We'd be remiss without saying, hey, John Pitt, how you doing,
Big
man?
John, how are you? Oh, John, are you there? He's still looking at his bracket. That's what it is.
Yeah, so well, I'm trying to figure out what happened with my bracket. I need your help, John, on this one, if I can show it at some point.
Oh, okay. But anyway, Gary, before we get too far into the show, let's give congratulations to a team that won the Kentucky Invitational, the St. Peter's Peacocks, for they defeated Kentucky, they defeated Murray State, and they are this year's Kentucky Invitational champions. So congratulations to Shaheem Holloway and the St. Peter's Peacocks.
Yep. Hey, give credit where it's due, man. Having been an eyewitness to it courtside and just watching how well they play defense and how that kid, Daryl Banks III, was just lights out. Him and Doug Eater were just, I'm telling you, they were just ice. That's all I can really describe it.
And you had a front row seat for that, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And the thing that, especially against Kentucky, that I was really impressed with is that they forced Kentucky way out of their zone. They pushed them out away from the basket. They really cut off the driving lanes for Severe Wheeler to a point where he was like having to go around and drive the baseline and try to find anybody open going to the basket. And they had somebody shadowed going to the basket. They draped, Doug Eater draped himself all over Kellen Grady. Oh man, I'm stumbling over names today, but yeah, Kellen Grady. I've never seen anybody really frustrate him like that. And it wasn't so much because, he was struggling with his shot. I mean, he was 0 for 5 in the SEC game against Tennessee, but they just were not letting him get free. And that was a focus, because all he's got to do is knock down a couple threes. That draws the defense out, and then that opens up for Oscar Sheboy inside. Oscar got his points. Oscar got his rebounds. But overall, they almost made him a non-factor because they took everybody else out of the game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I agree with you. Sheboy still had a double-double, but nobody else was really a factor. Going to overtime just prolonged the obvious, which was Kentucky was not going to have enough to beat St. Peter's. I mean, they are a tough team. And
they lost the lead, remember, in the regulation.
Yeah. And as Holloway says, what do we have to be scared of? I got a bunch of kids from New Jersey, New York. We aren't scared of anything. And
yeah, that was his answer to my question too, because when they played Murray State, it was, that was kind of a slugfest, a physical slugfest, because they were two similar teams. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but when I asked him that question, he's just like, yeah, I got kids from New York, New Jersey. What do we got to be scared of?
Well, there you get it, ladies and gentlemen. That was the question from Gary Gray. So we have one of the people in the press row who asked the question that had the most response. Way to go, Gary. Way to go. Way to go.
Hey, I earned the big bucks for a reason. I think they're big bucks, but I mean, the thing about the tournament, as an eyewitness is, you see things and you really like, it's one thing to watch them on TV, but when you're sitting there courtside and you see kind of the battles that don't necessarily get on camera, like the jawing between the guards, like some of the jostling between the big men, not so much in the lane, but just around the box, and that's how you see a lot of the plays develop. The most effective game I thought St. Peter's played was really against Murray State, because like I said, they have a lot of the similar characteristics. They're a physical team. They didn't look like the biggest team in the world, particularly at backcourt, but they were quick and they matched up well. The biggest thing in that game, remember, John, is that they got 4 guys in foul trouble before halftime. And by, foul trouble, we're talking about 2 fouls each. Two guys, 2 reserves had 3 fouls. And this is before halftime. By some miracle, Murray State kept them from fouling out, and they really needed Justice Hill to really start knocking down 3-pointers to kind of get back in that game. But they were so effective at neutralizing the big men, or I should say, minimizing the effect and damage that those guys could do, while their big guy really, really, really took charge.
Yeah, well, like we say, man, congratulations to St. Peter's. Did you see any other upsets that threw you for a loop on this tournament this week, Gary?
I'm going to say Michigan over Tennessee. Because Michigan, nobody knew how, without, nobody knew, I'm sorry. Yeah. Collins, nobody knew what he was going to do, Frankie, in that game, because he got pressed into action. And basically, he saved them in that first game. But again, they found a way. I mean, that was kind of a slugfest with Tennessee, but they found a way to take their best players out. They kept Vescovi from being a factor, in the clutch, and they just kept getting clutch baskets. Terrence Williams might have been the MVP, for them, and even Hunter Dickinson was. We don't win without Terrence Williams, which is really, really telling, because a lot of stuff goes through Hunter Dickinson, and you can compare him to Frank the Tank if you want to. He's a different player. Frank the Tank was good at Wisconsin, but this kid Hunter Dickinson, at least for this team, he was looking for the ball, he was looking for contact. He didn't shy away. Of course, that's easy when you're 7-1, but it's like they kind of found their swag, and maybe it's because they had they really had Howard back, but once they got their guard back for Tennessee, they were whole again, and you saw how good they could play. That was not the team that had lost a lot of games down the stretch before. That's not the team that limped into the tournament. That's the team we were seeing earlier this season.
Well, the interesting thing, the player Devontae Jones, who had a concussion coming in, he got hit in the head again in the first half of the game and had to sit out the entire second half. And Michigan played really well in the second half. They really had problems in the first half neutralizing pick and rolls, and the kid on Tennessee, I think his name is Chandler, him rolling to the basket, and Dickinson ended up on the pick and roll, checking the guards. They made some adjustments in the second half. They found a way to neutralize that some, and then they were able to pull out a win. Be an interesting matchup for them playing Villanova, so we'll see how that is. But
yeah.
Congratulations and good luck to the Wolverines.
Yeah. Before we move on to the coaching carousel, because that was that sparked a nice discussion between us before we went on. First, let's give props to Coach K for keeping his farewell tour going.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that was something. I probably I would root for a lot of schools against Duke, but that was one going against Izzo, going against Michigan State, that I kind of said, I'm not ready to see him go just yet. I never thought I would say that.
Well, I was happy to see him continue.
I'll tell you that Ben Carroll, that kid is something else.
He's a very good player. Can't forget that Jeremy Roach hit some really, really tough shots, and he kept them in there and then put them ahead for good. They really gutted it out. They really did. And as Coach K said, he gave credit to the players more so than the coaching, because that was a gut check. I mean, Michigan State is tough. I don't care when you play them. Izzo's always going to have his kids ready to grind out. So they won, and I'm like you, Gary. I want to see Coach K go a little bit longer, man. They got Texas Tech coming up in the Sweet 16. I think they can get Texas Tech and Gonzaga. If they get to the regional final, that'll be an interesting game, a rematch from early in the season when Duke beat Gonzaga. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. So as we move away from March Madness, let's go to the coaching carousel. A lot of hirings over the past week, including one here in Louisville with them tapping into former Cardinal Kenny Payne coming back home. But let's talk about Maryland first, because that's one where you and I really, really disagree about the choice in Ralph Willard that they announced yesterday/today. And John, I'm going to reiterate that as tempting as it is to go for the sexy pick, a la Rick Pitino, that, sometimes I think you got to go for the guy that I think is going to sustain you over the long haul, really know how to, build relationships. Pitino would have come in, he would have gotten some guys, but the kind of guys I think that they need over the long haul. I mean, they don't need stars. They need role players right now. And I think that's the thing that Willard is good at. That's the thing he was good at Seton Hall. I can't tell you one Seton Hall player right now that he recruited. Only thing I know is that he was a guy that really believes, that truly believes in bringing in local kids, regional kids, and building the program from there and building that. And that's something I think Maryland has lacked for a long, long time.
Well, congratulations to Kevin Willard and getting the job at Maryland. I wish him nothing but the best, Gary. I hope it really works out for him.
No, you don't.
What do I want to say? You mentioned that, he'll be able to get the role players. Well, right now, Maryland does not have an inventory of role players or 5-star players. It is a cupboard.
John. They got nothing.
There is a cupboard that is bare right now. They need a lot to get everything the way it needs to be. Yes, I have been on record as saying I was hoping Rick Pitino would get the job. Rick Pitino did not get the job.
He didn't want the job, John.
That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing. It's like, you don't go after somebody that doesn't want to go there.
Well, this is all I'll say to that, Gary. And this goes back to my background in sales and selling different things. You may tell me no the first time and the second time, but I'm going to come back one more time. And I still think Maryland had one card left to play with Pitino, and I'm not sure they played it or not. And that would have been, Iona did not get into this tournament. And watching what St. Peter's is doing is only validation to me that you should have taken 2 teams out of the MAC conference to get in, but they never will. They never will because of it's the MAC conference. Mm-hmm. And I think I said to you last week, I would have gone back to Pitino and I would have said, this is messed up. You didn't get in. But I can guarantee you right now, if you have a season of 27-3 or 27-8, whatever Iona was, and you win the regular season MAC, and then you lose They lost in the first round to Ryder, if I'm not mistaken, 71-70 in the tournament. If that is Maryland and he goes 27-5, they win the Big Ten regular season, and then they lose to Nebraska in the first quarterfinals, they're still getting a bid. That's what I would have. I'm not sure they did that. And if they did or didn't, what happened now, you got to move on. You have Willard. I hope it works out. I just don't know if this is what is going to make Maryland work. I know you believe that he's the right choice. We'll have to see, Gary. We'll have to see.
For right now, I think he's the right choice.
Yeah, you know me, man. I'm not going to tear somebody down. You know I'm not going to do that. But I just think that Maryland deserves to look at all options. I think that's the best way I can put it. And I think Maryland deserves the best of the best. I don't think Maryland needs to look at themselves as a second fiddle. And until they realize and accept the fact that they are just as good as anybody else, then they are going to continue to have some challenges. Just because I go and try to hit a home run and I don't hit it, but I still hit a double, I still got on base, Gary. Remember that. I may not hit the home run, but I can still hit a double, or I can still hit a triple. I still get on base, and I can still bring people home. So that's all I say. Kevin Willard, wish him nothing but the best, Gary. And you're alumni there, man. So I hope it works out for you, man. I really do.
Here, I think with my expectations, I'm going to say they've been tamped down a lot in recent years because a lot of programs other than lacrosse have seemed to flatline. And that's about, that's the God's honest truth about that program. They are fair to middling at best right now. That shouldn't happen. The thing is, it's kind of like you can put Dubs on a Toyota. It's still going to be a Toyota. That's the way I feel about Maryland. You can go and get the sexy coach for football or basketball. Of course, they have neither. But I think it's a lot to really expect Patino or any other big name to turn that program around in a hurry, because I think that they would get in there and find players that really don't suit them. And right now, you're just not going to, I don't know where you're going to find those guys that are going to come to a program like Maryland, as opposed to Duke, Kentucky, North Carolina, which, Hubert Davis, has done a heck of a job with that. I might note, but, John, you just never know with some of these coaches. The one that I really liked, Chris Jans, that was a steal to me. That I just don't know how in the world that they pulled that one off for Mississippi State, because they lost a solid coach in Ben Howland. I didn't think that they were going to get a home run hire, and Chris Jans, I think, is a home run hire. He might have been probably the best coach out there since, we're talking about candidates. I think he might have been the best coach that wasn't getting a whole lot of pub. And now he moves into the SEC, and he's got a chance to really do something with that team.
Well, we'll see how that works out. Some of these coaches you got to look at too, Gary. You coach in a mid-major, and you're successful there for a reason, because that's what you are. And again, I don't say that as a knock or an insult. It's great to be a mid-major coach, but sometimes I think people have to look at what you are. I'll use an example. Free agency, football, basketball, baseball, doesn't matter. If you're a small market guy and you've always been a small market, but then you want to go and you want to get the money because it's in New York, but you're not used to that kind of media attention, you're not used to that kind of world, then you don't perform as well, and you went just for the money, and you may not be as successful. Chris Jans, I'm not saying he can't be successful, but he had success at New Mexico State, which, it's a mid-major. He does a good job every year over there. Just like Todd, what's the guy's name? Todd Golden.
Todd Golden at San Francisco.
At San Francisco, he's going to Florida. I think Golden will be successful at Florida. I really do.
I do too. I mean, because I saw San Francisco. That's a good team.
Yeah, and it's like when Musselman first came to Arkansas. It's, to me, it takes a certain way of doing things. I remember when Calipari left UMass and when he went to Memphis, and then he went to, I guess, the NBA, and then he finally went to Kentucky. He had that something about him that you knew he was going to be it wherever he went. Same with Pitino. Same with Bruce Pearl. There's certain coaches, Roy Williams, Coach K, Izzo, you see it in them. And I guess to go full circle back around, I don't know if that's what Maryland has. I don't know. I just don't know. And we'll have to see.
Yeah. I think with a lot of programs, and Louisville included, that 2 years is very, two mediocre, one mediocre year and then one sorry year like this season that went off the rail the way that I never imagined. That was the beginning of a trend that I don't think Chris Mack would have gotten him out of, for all of the hype that he came in with. And I thought that he was a quote unquote home run hire when they brought him in, because he was coming off leading Xavier to an overall #1 seed, but then they bow out in the second round, and it was just a logical choice, and it just didn't work out. The sad part about that with him here is that his best team, albeit with Pitino's players, didn't get a chance to play in a tournament 2 years ago, and you wonder what might have been. COVID really affected that program indirectly and then directly. And we'll see what Kenny Payne can do. But the thing with a lot of these programs, sometimes you just get into a pattern that becomes hard to dig out of. And sometimes I think you just have to just move in small steps. That's the way that I see it with Maryland, because I'm not sure if Maryland could really deal with trying to turn it around in 1 year. I just don't think that they're that kind of program right now.
They aren't that kind of program, Gary, but I think putting it in a basic box, I think they got a self-esteem problem, man. They don't realize what they have. They don't realize that you don't always have to be the doormat in the Big Ten, which is what they're looked upon in the Big Ten, as a doormat. And
that's not quite, because they're not that far removed from being a contender, John. We're only talking about maybe 2 years. That COVID year kind of wiped them out too.
But look at the entire athletic program at Maryland. And again, part of me is probably biased, Gary. I'll be perfectly honest and candid.
I'm biased too. Remember, I'm an alum.
And I just think I know why they left the ACC to go to the Big Ten. I understand why they did it. I don't agree
you
with
explain
them.
it to me.
Well,
I'm saying in a figure, we know.
Yeah, but
and that's it.
And I think that they are not across the board year in and year out, whether it's football or basketball. In football, they're not Ohio State and Michigan. In basketball, they're not Michigan State and they're not Iowa or Wisconsin. So you get sand kicked on your face like you're at the beach. And my point is, they don't have to accept that. They have a great tradition. They need more facilities. They need an indoor basketball facility, but they have things there, and this is a great area to coach in. It's a lot of kids here. And I just think that they need to realize everything that they have at their disposal. and realize that they can be a juggernaut in both sports, but they have to be willing to hit that home run and realize you may end up with a double or a triple. That's all I'm saying.
I'm going to let it go with that, John. I'll let you have the last word on that. We'll, like you said, we'll see. All right, NFL free agency. I don't even know if we can top this story with Deshaun Watson, the lightning rod for the NFL right now in many ways. I'm not going to get into the legal stuff because that's a Pandora's box that I'm not ready to deal with yet. And there's still a whole lot we don't know there. But my question, John, is with all that baggage attached to him and Cleveland gives him 5-year, $230 million contract guaranteed. And they basically have structured it that whatever happens with his legal issues and he has to serve a suspension, which could be half a year, that at the most he would only lose $1 million. And remember, he got a $45 million bonus just, up front. And they gave up half the team. Or I'm going to say they gave up a lot of their future. I shouldn't say they gave up half.
Well, they gave up 5 picks?
At least 5 picks. And I think one of them that they get back. But you know what I see, John? I see this as Herschel Walker 2.0 with this. Yeah, he is a phenomenal talent. And I have no problems in saying that. But he's been away for a year and he's going to Cleveland, which is like, I'm going to say this too. Cleveland is a toxic dump right now. I don't care about, how all the potential and everything else. That's a toxic organization. And I just don't know if getting a quarterback of his caliber and paying him that much is how you're going to build that team into a winner.
First, let me say the comments made by Gary Graves are not the comments of everybody on the show in regards to Cleveland being a toxic dump. I mean, that's
no, I'm not talking about the city. I'm talking about the Browns.
Well,
Cleveland. I got a lot of my relatives are in Cleveland. I've been there enough to know. I love Cleveland as a city. This is no reflection on them at all.
Well,
friends and family out there.
I don't know. They gave up a lot to get him, to get Deshaun Watson. I think there'll be some rust, but I think he'll be able to get himself going. The thing that we aren't really talking about, and it's hard because nothing's been said about it, is going to be the suspension. How many games is that going to be? You just mentioned it may be half the season, which is 8-9 games, depending on what you consider a half. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I think Houston has we'll see if they're able. Dallas had a very strong front office with Jimmy Johnson helping pull that together when they traded Herschel Walker. Let's see what Houston has. What is it? Nick Caserio, is that his name? The GM there?
Yeah.
So, and it used to be in New England. It's in the front office in New England. So let's see what happens. At Cleveland, they have not really won consistently since I don't know when, Gary. I may have to go back to Jim Brown to find when they used to win consistently. It's just it's a rough situation.
John,
Go ahead.
You don't have to think hard on that. One name, Marty Schottenheimer.
You're right. I forgot about Marty, and that's my guy. You're right. They won consistently then. You're right. Yeah. But how long ago was that?
I think your sons were both in grade school when that happened. Now that was more late 90s.
And you and I both had hair. So, it was a long time ago. But I mean, you're right. And thanks, Gary. I went all the way back to the 60s, but you're right. Schottenheimer had a very strong run there, a very strong run.
Even Belichick had a modicum of success there in the mid '90s before he got fired and then ended up taking over in New England.
Yeah, well, we gotta see, man. That's gonna be, they're gonna need some pieces. I mean, they're gonna need a wide receivers for him to throw to. You're gonna need some linemen for the block so he can throw to the wide receivers. So let's see how they put this together. It'll be very interesting, man. It'll be very interesting to see how this plays out.
Well, see here, my biggest problem with contracts like that is that you're going to be handcuffed with the salary cap for a long, long time. I mean, 5 years is not that long in terms of contract terms, but you've given up draft picks, so now you can't build from the you can't build through the draft. You're going to have to make a lot of trades. You're probably going to have to get a lot of guys to buy into something at less than what the market dictates to come to Cleveland just to play with him. I've got no problem with Deshaun Watson getting as much as he can. I just feel like when you give somebody that kind of money, and baseball is going to have this problem now, now that they settled, and right there in Washington, I see this as probably the biggest dilemma that they face. That say you give a star player like Juan Soto $400 million. I mean, I've heard he could earn as much as $500 million. But even if you give him $400 million over how many years, as opposed to say developing your farm system, draft picks, trades, something like that. As much as I love him as a player, I just don't know if you're going to let Scott Boras spin your way out of contention just to keep one player. And with Cleveland, I'm like, hey, more power to Deshaun Watson in Cleveland. He got what the market dictated, but again, they're going to have to be very, very creative in other ways to really make that trade work. Houston, on the other hand, another, I think, toxic environment just because of his departure from there. They better get somebody in there that really knows how to use those picks wisely. And I'm going to leave it at that.
Well said, Mr. Graves. Well said.
Yeah. So we move on to the Sweet 16. I wonder if it's going to strike midnight for St. Peter's. I think that they're going to make a good run. You got any predictions, John?
Well, let me see. Men's side, let me take a look at it real quick. You got Gonzaga, Arkansas, Texas Tech, and Duke. Toss-up games. UNC, UCLA. St. Peter's and Purdue. It may come to an end for St. Peter's. Interesting game. Iowa State, Miami. That'll be fun to watch. 11 out of 10. Kansas, I think, beats Providence. Houston, I think, is going to be more problems for Arizona than a lot of people think. I think that's going to be an interesting game. I think the way Houston plays and the way they dig in, they're going to be a problem. They play, I don't know if you agree with this or not, Gary. To me, they play similar to the way TCU played last night. Only thing, they play it better because they're used to playing it a little bit more than TCU is. They're scrappy. They dig in, and I think Arizona's going to have a hard time. I mean, honestly, I think Arizona is lucky to be where they are. They got out of that last night. So
no doubt.
I think it's Houston will be an interesting game. I would love to see another Duke Gonzaga game again as a rematch. I would love to see that as a regional final. I would like to see UNC and continue to win. I would love to see that because part of me would not mind seeing in the Final Four on one side Duke and Carolina one more time, Gary. Just one more time. I wouldn't mind seeing that. So,
yeah. Well,
what about you?
John, I agree with just about everything you said. In fact, I agree with everything you said. The thing about Houston, they kind of, I don't want to harken back to, they say, the Phi Slamma Jamma days, because that was a completely different team. But I think, Kelvin Sampson has built a program with athletes and guys much the same way Guy Lewis did, that same type of player. You don't have Hakeem Olajuwon or Clyde Drexler or an Elvin Hayes by any stretch. But I think you got a team that likes to play fast and physical, is scrappy. They're fun to watch. And I feel like for all the scrutiny that Sampson has gotten in his career, that he's landed in a place with a team that it wouldn't surprise me to see them in a Final Four. That's a team I think is going to be fun to watch. Before we go, the women's side, because we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about how entertaining that side is as well. Granted, South Carolina beat Howard by 58 points in that game, and I mean I think that's right. I don't know what
79-21, Gary. 79-21.
Yep, 79-21. And I keep thinking, when I looked at that line score, that Howard scored 2 points in the first and second quarters. I've never seen anything like that. And you know what I'd like to see? In fact, this is the only thing I'm really going to say about that. Howard, you got to get some good teams on that schedule to really, I mean, you can't wait until the tournament to start playing teams like that. I don't know about their non-league schedule. And granted, we're talking about South Carolina, but you've got to put a team together that can do more than score 4 points in a half.
Yeah, I think it'll come. I think they're trying to grow a program at Howard, not used to being this far. I think if they continue on the pace and the path they're on, they're going to be okay. I mean, South Carolina is I see them in the Final Four, to be honest with you, Gary. I mean, South Carolina's going to do that to a lot of people. I think South Carolina coming out on that one side, and I'll take a stab at it. They'll play UConn in the championship. South Carolina against UConn in the championship.
I could see that. I'm on the Dawn bandwagon all the way. No offense to my peeps here in Louisville. It's just, it is kind of what it is in college, women's college basketball, that it's South Carolina and UConn. Although I still say that, Stanford, and for all that talk that I think I've had, I think I still pick South Carolina, but I still say, do not underestimate Stanford by any measure, because Vanderveer has got, I mean, she's got players. She's got players. And for a team with all that success, they got a chip on their shoulder. They really do, because they feel like they fly under the radar. They're the only national champion that still feels like it goes under the radar. And I think that's a good sign for them. They earned that number one seed. State, let's not forget them either.
Well, and then Stanford, their next game is against the Maryland Lady Terps. So we'll see how that works out for them. I'm rooting for the Terps on that one, Gary. We'll see how they do. But
oh yeah, me too.
If you press me on it, my final two are going to be UConn against South Carolina for the national championship.
All right, hey folks, you got him on the record on that. We're about to say out. Watch the games, enjoy sports, because there's a whole lot to enjoy this time of year. I mean, this is a month-long holiday. Let's just be real about it. I hope your brackets aren't busted too much, and let's get together again a week from now, okay?
Hey, everybody, have another great week. Watch the basketball games, the men's and women's tournament. Both of them are exciting. Take some time to watch both of those games. Have some fun, and we'll see you again next week. John Pitt, thanks for everything. Everybody, take care. We'll see you.